Hello. Today we are going to read One Giant Leap, a historical account of the first moon landing. And it's by Robert Burleigh, and the paintings are by Mike Wimmer. I love this. Look at that. It's the moon. You can see those craters. I just love that picture. It's so beautiful. It says for Aiden and Austin Scott, along with Robin, Ryan, Sue, and Ralph. That's from Robert Burleigh. And the illustrator, Mike Wimmer, says, this book is dedicated to the men and women who look to the heavens, not just for inspiration, but for a destination. I would like to recognize the following people for their invaluable help with research and getting the facts straight, which helped me bring this historic event to life. Max Arai, J. Milt Heflin, Associate Director, Office of the Director at NASA Johnson Space Center, Mike Gentry, Media Resource Center, NASA Johnson Space Center, Suzette Ellison, and Oklahoma Science Museum, MW. I think it's cool to find out, who the authors dedicate and the illustrators who they dedicate stories to or who they thank, because we only get to see the final products. Some of these take so long to write, and they have to do all kinds of research and get information and just all of the steps along the way. It's really cool to kind of think about that. All right. July 20th, 1969, 70 miles up, the two spaceships. Sorry, let's try that again. July 20th, 1969, 70 miles up, the two spaceships, Eagle and Columbia, separate. They orbit in sight of each other one last time. Then the Eagle begins to descend to where no human has ever been, to the moon. The Eagle is like a gold-speckled bug falling out of the sky, its odd-shaped body plastered with many boxes, its outer walls thinner than human skin. The spacecraft's spindly legs poke out as it rides on its back. At 8,000 feet, it tilts and straightens, breaks its descent, slows, drifts up, down through space. So you can see that. So you heard me say it was 70 miles up. And I don't know if you remember earlier in the unit, I showed you guys like a model of the distance of Earth to the moon. And it really isn't all that far compared to the Earth to other things, because the moon goes around the Earth. Remember that. But usually when we go to the International Space Station, it's way closer to Earth than to the moon. Okay, we're going to keep going. The astronauts look out at last. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin. They stand upright before two small windows. Their eyes widen. Look, rushing up toward them, the moon. It is gray, it is brown, it is blue-edged. It is a billion-year-old landscape, is cracked and scarred. Its surface gouged and cratered and pitted with tiny holes, like a battlefield from some ancient war. You can see the guys looking out. The radio voice crackles from Earth, 240,000 miles away. So remember, they started at 70 miles apart and then they separated. Now they're 240,000 miles away from Earth. Eagle, Houston, you are good for a landing. Armstrong tenses forward, feeling the second tick. Aware that the fuel is sinking towards zero, timing is everything. His gaze darts between nearby rows of switches and the strange world below. Dark ridges rise like forbidding walls. Spidery shadows creep in the rising sunlight. Boulders loom as big as cars. He glances again at the flashing dial. Fuel running short. Where can he land? That's hard. He's got some pressure there, huh? Eagle, 90 seconds of descent fuel left. Armstrong hears the warning. Now, all he has ever learned is focused on this. Nothing matters but this exact moment. Aldrin's nonstop voice calls out altitude numbers. 40 feet, 35 feet, 30. Down they move, down and down, fast enough to conserve precious fuel, slow enough to land somewhere safely, he hopes. The eagle dips, hovers, zigs, zags, dances over its own dark shadow. The seconds tick toward eternity. Time stops. Clouds of moon dust swirl like blackening fog, an almost terrifying blindness. And then, with only the very slightest bump, the small craft touches down. Whew! The eagle has landed. High overhead, Michael Collins listens, but cannot see. They made it. They made it. The Columbia orbits and waits. So that's the spaceship that they were on, the Columbia. And so the Eagle came off of that. The Columbia orbits and waits. Collins has waited a lifetime for this. Yet for him, the waiting is not over. In Houston, on Earth, hundreds in the control room break into wild cheers. The first human is on the moon. But in this other place, it is very quiet. It is lunar morning on the Sea of Tranquility. Armstrong lets out another deep breath and turns. He raises his gloved hand and meets Aldrin's gloved hand halfway. We did it. We're here. So I love this illustration. You can see that they are, it's the view from the moon to Earth. Exploration time. Armstrong and Aldrin add still more to their spacesuits. There are new overshoes and heavier gloves, a visored helmet to protect against sunlight, and an oxygen-filled backpack thick as a sofa pillow. They pause to gaze out, an endless, mysterious wasteland, whose distant hills as sharply outlined as nearby stones. No water, no wind, no sound, no life at all. Unbelievable. That would be kind of scary. I mean, no one's ever been there before. You know, they don't know what's going to happen when they go out. I mean, like scientists think they knew, right? But they weren't quite sure. So I could see how that might be scary right at that moment. Got all their space gear on. A hatch opens. Armstrong, on all fours, crawls through its small space. He moves awkwardly in his moon cocoon outside on the narrow porch, where a ladder is attached to one landing leg. He climbs to the bottom rung and stops. A TV camera placed in the edge's hatchway is pointed down. Armstrong knows that back on Earth, hundreds of millions of people are watching. He jumps to the landing leg's round footpad. He holds on. He pauses. He points his foot and steps off. The surface is as fine as powdered charcoal. The treads of his boot have a perfectly crisp print in the dust. On the weatherless moon, it will last for millions of years. So think about that, like all the wind and stuff that we have on Earth. If you were to write your name in a piece of dirt, the wind and the rain, the snow, whatever, would wear that away. But on the moon, they don't have that. They don't have weather. So it's going to stay there for millions of years, his footprint. His voice sounds staticky and far away. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. In orbit, Michael Collins listens and waits. Do you remember that video of the landing I showed you earlier? Here, let's watch that real quick, and then we'll finish the book.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Now you remember it? Okay. Now it's Buzz Aldrin's turn. He climbs down, feeling full of goose pimples. That means like goosebumps. Together, the astronauts go moonwalking. Flexing their toes and ankles, they walk stiffly, as if navigating inside a rigid balloon. but moving about is easier than they expect. They twirl like slow motion tiptoe dancers. They jog, they kangaroo hop, like two boys bouncing on a trampoline. Because of the moon's lesser gravity, they feel light as air. There's the Earth. Armstrong checks the time. They must hurry. They have just 2 hours on this strange and beautiful world. They use long metal tongs to collect rocks. Some are slippery with dust. Some sparkle. Some look tan or even purple. The rocks go into 2 large boxes that scientists will open back on Earth. So why would they take rocks from the moon? Yeah, they would use them to learn, take it back so they can learn about the moon, learn about the composition. It's a way to study it. They try to plant the American flag, but underneath its surface, dust. The moon is like steel. They jab the pole into the hard crust. They twist and turn, leaning with all their might. At last, they are able to balance the staff, just barely. A rod across the top keeps the flag unfurled. Then, click. Armstrong takes a picture of Aldrin saluting the flag. A surprise call comes from the president. For a priceless moment, all the people on this earth are truly one. A tightness rises in the throats of the astronauts. They feel part of something so much larger than themselves. Yet, soon it is over. They are inside again, and the world is not theirs, not their own. Streaks of dirt covered their spacesuits. The smell of the moon dust hits them as they remove the helmets. Like spent cap pistols, they tell each other. They've been awake for 18 hours straight, but it feels like much more. Can they sleep now? Maybe. It is shivery cold in the cramped Eagle. Aldrin curls up on the floor. Armstrong lies in a hammock stretched across the room, exhausted. He looks up. Above him, there is an unshuttered porthole. The earth stares down. A big blue eyeball, he thinks. He blinks back at the bright blue eye, then turns and tries to sleep. So they said that the moon smelled like spent cap guns. If you ever used a cap gun, like they make that like quick sound, like whoosh, and it looks like a little smoke. And it's got kind of a sulfury smell. That's what they're talking about. I like that angle here of this image. He's looking out, seeing Earth, trying to go to sleep. So the next day, so this started with us going up July 20th, 1969. Now it's July 21st, the next day. Unease, uncertainty. This is the part they were most afraid of. This is the place where things can go terribly wrong. Armstrong and Aldrin stand quietly in the tiny cockpit. Lift off in 1 minute, and from here, maybe. The Eagle will split into 2 parts. The upper half must fly up. The lower will stay on the moon, a permanent monument. Will the engine light? Will it keep on burning? They try to ease their worries, but there is no escape from this. No backing up, no doing it again. No second try. They knew one thing only. Failure means death. The second hand winds down. Now or never. Aldrin's voice cuts into the awful stillness. 3, 2, 1, ascent. That is terrifying. I know that in my lifetime, there's been a couple space missions where all of the crew members have passed away. And obviously that was before, or that was much like later after all of this that we're reading about. But they knew those risks. I mean, that's one part of the risk of space exploration. If something goes wrong, it could cost the astronauts their lives. So, they really are risking their lives to learn and explore and find out information. At first, a frightening pause. What is happening? Then bang, whoosh, zoom. It feels as if the floor is coming up at them. The Eagle's top half rises like a fast-moving elevator. Its engine leaves a trail of wide white light. The Eagle soars skyward, silently, faster and faster. 50 miles up, almost a mile a second. Aldrin glances sideways, nods and grins. Into moon orbit, on our way. So they kind of got over that part where they were a little bit nervous, that they thought maybe something would go wrong. But they're moving on. Higher still, Michael Collins peers through his sextant, still waiting. Where are they? He scans the sky and sees only blackness. The Columbia has been circling now for over 20 hours. From the far side of the moon, Collins cannot even radio back to the people on Earth. He squints through the sextant's eyepiece again. There, a tiny blinking light in the darkness. By the way, that sextant that we're talking about is like almost a piece that he can look out and see outside, almost like a peephole, you can look outside and see who's at your door, just a way to view, because you can't open the door, can't open it all up because it's not safe. So that's the way he has to see. All right, he locks his computer on the distant speck, tracking its approach. The Eagle keeps climbing and climbing, up and up. It is like an intricate dance. Columbia leads, Eagle follows, all at speeds of over 3,000 miles an hour. Now they fly in perfect formation, closer, closer. Collins punches hundreds of keystrokes to make the docking work. They touch, they connect, the capture latches snap shut. A small door opens into a tunnel, and look who's here. Welcome. Armstrong and Aldrin come floating through. So that is really cool that the spaceships, they have those different parts that can come apart. So this one, when they get there, they can connect and have it all together, and then they can open their hatches and visit with one another, so that they're not going outside of the spaceship where it's not safe, where they won't be able to survive. This just lets them connect, and then they're able to, join their crewmate and hopefully go back to Earth here. So let's see. In the final orbit around the moon, can a photo capture the wonder of what they've seen? Not likely. So the astronauts hover inside the Columbia's windows, taking pictures. The spacecraft accelerates. That means it gets faster. It curls around the moon's far edge. It is flung free like the tail end skater in a game of Crack the Whip, and it soars into the emptiness of space. The astronauts look back with a sad, happy feeling. Hours go by. They can rest at last. They sleep, read, talk, play music. Sometimes they glimpse the slowly receding moon. Was it all a dream? No, we were there. We were there. But mostly their eyes are fixed on another place. Blue, white, light brown, and shining below them. They want that now, more than anything. A planet of oceans and rivers, of grass and green hills, a world of trees and family and friends. A place called Earth, fragile, beautiful home. So see that? They would have that little capsule. That's where the people would be, and then when they got to Earth, it would drop into the ocean. And there we have Earth. We're going to go ahead and read the author's note with this one. It says, "A man on the moon, the moon." It was July 20th, 1969. For one miraculous moment, the playfulness of nursery rhymes, the fantasy of science fiction, and the reality of true science were joined. We, a billion more or less of Earth's inhabitants, means Earth's people, watched on snow-flecked black and white television screens as a stiff figure climbed down a ladder and planted a boot in the soft dust of another world. How did it come about? When President John F. Kennedy proclaimed in the early 1960s that America would land an astronaut on the moon within the decade, it sounded to many like an unreachable dream, or at most, simple politics. And in one sense, it was. Kennedy's promise came during the Cold War between the United States and Soviet Union. The Russians had earlier sent a cosmonaut around the Earth. America responded with its own space program. The big prize was the moon. And the race was on. The amount of money, the people hours, the planning, the trials and errors, the dogged belief of thousands of men and women, all that went into that first step in the soft dust is beyond the scope of this book. But the result of that dedicated effort, America's moon landing, may well be the single most concentrated and successful effort to achieve one great goal in human history. Where the United States space program is going today is unclear. Our technological power has increased to an amazing degree in the past half century. Today, one tiny chip can hold far more information and facilitate far more activities than even the hugest, bulkiest computer a half a century ago. Basically saying, hey, our technology now is awesome and tiny. What we do with this new power in regard to space travel is still to be decided. What is our next destination? There are millions of galaxies in the universe besides ours, the Milky Way. Traveling to one of them, perhaps at the speed of light, may seem impossible now, but remember, space exploration of any kind once seemed impossible, so don't be too sure. One thing, though, is certain. Regardless of what occurs in the future, nothing can diminish the heroic achievement and sublime beauty of the moment when humans first landed on Earth's one and only moon. That is the end. So I would recommend to you finding somebody that you know that was alive during this time and asking them if they saw that, what they thought about that, maybe your grandparents. Find out information like that, because I know I wasn't alive yet, but I grew up and my parents were able to tell me about it. So I think that's a really cool thing when we live through history. Sometimes we live through awesome history like that too. And it's cool to find out other people's stories about it and what life was like for them when it happened. So, I hope you enjoyed this story, but I also hope that it leads you to have some conversations with people that lived during this time, and you can ask them about it. All right.
That's 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds forward, drift. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're going to be busy for a minute.
Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon. On this July 20th, 1969.
It's one small step for man. One giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful, clearly. It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here. Beautiful, beautiful. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation. Tranquility Base, Houston. Guidance recommendation is pings, and you're cleared for takeoff. Roger, understand. We're number 1 on the runway. 7, 6, 5, engine arm ascent.
Very smooth. Very quiet ride.
Apollo 11, this is Hornet, over. Apollo 1, this is Apollo 11, reading your loud and clear. Our position 1330.
All right, I hope you learned a lot. Take care.